All right, let's come back together and think about the analysis that you've done on your past emotional hijack situations. And let's just get some examples and make sure we're using examples that are going to be the best for us as we analyze this. And we think about what broad categories, what dangerous situations, what dangerous relationships do we need to be aware of as a result of this initial analysis. So what do we have for examples of past emotional hijacks? Okay.
Speaking in front of our third number of our senior leaders and folks in the company, and I had presentation notes on one TV in front of the stage that I was on, and the slides that were behind me, and also in front of me on another TV. And right before I was going to get up, one of the communications directors who was putting on the event, sure enough, she said, "There was an issue. Presentation notes are gone." I didn't know what exactly that meant until I got up there and realized.
Oh, okay.
So, trying to figure out exactly what lines I wanted to say verbatim and do that, on the fly in front of very those folks. Just one of those moments where you kind of stop and gather things and realize, all right, gotta make it.
How'd you do? So you looked
Mediocre.
Mediocre? Heart start beating, short of breath?
Not that bad, but it was one of those things where I had to definitively pause and collect my thoughts and figure out, where are we going?
Okay. So you might, and that seems like a well-handled emotional hijack situation. But what might be valuable for that is you could say you get nervous when you don't have your preparation notes.
Well, it was more that I was fair enough prepared to do it without them, but expecting to have them there and then all of a sudden them not being there was the issue. Was the odd knowing.
Okay, so the surprise. So the surprise might be something for you to keep in mind too. That when you're surprised, that could put you in a tough situation. So when you get a surprise like that, you say, all right, make sure I don't say the wrong thing. I'm surprised. I'm in a situation where I might just get a little bit irrational here. All right, what else do we have? Nick.
Actually, interesting story. So a few months back in March, every year our company does promotions for people who've been there for a while. And I was told that I was guaranteed and approved to be promoted.
Okay.
So I actually went home to my family. I told everyone, I was like, I'm on the list. It's approved. And then the next day, and they publish it purposely at the end of the business day, so you can go home and sleep on it and then wake up in the morning. And my name wasn't on the list. And that night, I actually wrote my resignation letter, and I booked a vacation. And oddly enough, on that vacation, so I had an irrational kind of response, which is basically I told my boss, I was like, this is my last couple weeks, and he was like, well, let's chat about it.
You told him at the end of the day? Or at the
I
end
called
of
him up that night. So I said I have my letter and this and that. And he goes, let's chat about it tomorrow. He goes, I'm sure there's a logical explanation, and there wasn't, But what ended up happening was after I took the 24 hours, I'm still sour about it. But it's one of the reasons why I'm now at Rutgers, because I actually took a vacation, and I was like, well, if I'm not moving there, I don't want to be stagnant at a job. I want to be always striving. So I applied to business school and went back to school.
Okay. So you're just able to see the positives and everything. But
able to see the positives, but my initial reaction, luckily I had someone there to support me not going through with it.
Yeah.
Otherwise the letter would be sent.
Okay, so you had a period of losing rational ability to think.
Correct.
So you need to be aware. How would you broadly describe that category of event?
I would say it was low emotional management.
Meaning like, was this a threat to your financial well-being? Was this like a surprise? Like, I broadly categorize Jameson as a surprise. All right, that's something you say. All right, surprise will sometimes send me an emotional hijack. This could be.
So it was a surprise. I would say it was threatening professionally and socially.
Okay. Okay. All right. Keep thinking. I want to think if we can get more specific than that as we go on. But let's hear some other examples. Dan. Okay. Unmet expectations. that can annoy people. Absolutely. Dave.
I was on a transition team. There were 4 of us, and we were consolidating down 5 national back offices of companies we bought down to 1. We were about 9 months into it. It was going well, but not great. And the boss informed us that he was being reassigned, and somebody else was coming in to take it over. And I knew the guy who hated him that was coming to take it over.
Okay.
And my reaction was great. I changed my travel plans because I was flying constantly anyways, and went home. So I didn't have to see him because he was flying in the next day.
Okay.
So I changed my plans for like 2 weeks as to where I was going to be so I could avoid him.
Okay. Was that a bad thing? Did that end up hurting you?
Well, I took a different assignment a couple months later.
Okay. Was there a point where you just felt some sort of emotional hijack, heart beating, adrenaline running through your body because you hated this person so much?
Yeah, well, I felt so I knew him. He was very political in the company.
Mm-hmm.
So I understood his the group of people that sort of followed him around. So I felt immediately this is the beginning of the end, right? He's going to replace us with all his guys. He'll take credit for the work that we did.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
so I felt that sort of response. So I just avoided having to
Okay.
deal with him.
Excellent. Some other examples. Renee.
When I first started off as a staff, I was in training. Training takes up to like a year. So there's like a lot of material that you have to study for, and you're constantly traveling back and forth from corporate. So I'm like studying all the material, and I wasn't sleeping that well. And one day, the next morning, I was like up late the night before studying really hard. And, the next morning, I was supposed to be at a hospital at like 6:30 in the morning to turn a defibrillator off, and I figured that I could just keep my phone under my pillow so I would hear it better, except the volume was like really, really low and I didn't hear my alarm. And I showed up like an hour and a half late, and the OR is waiting for me to get there.
Okay.
And my manager finds out, and like the following week he had a talk with me, and I thought that he was going to fire me.
Okay.
So, in terms of my heart beating out of my chest and being threatened, definitely professionally threatened, and I thought.
But okay. So well, sure. So you had an emotional hijack, but I want to get to the point when this happened. And this was usually, we want to think about this in terms of an exact moment where you could say, boom, I started an emotional hijack and I lost rational thought. I may have done things that compromised my abilities to reach my goals.
So I was sitting down with my manager.
So this is a week after it happened, and he says, we need to talk about.
And right after that, I'm like, crap, I'm gonna get fired.
Okay.
So I meet up with him, and he was like, so, tell me what happened. He wants to hear my side of the story. And I told him what happened, and then he kind of just started going off about how serious this is and how this is absolutely unacceptable. And I pretty much just started crying.
Okay. Okay, good. Now we're getting somewhere. All right. We want to get to the point where you're experiencing emotional hijack, and you may want to think about using some of these techniques. And we want to broadly categorize these types of events so we can say, when my boss says something that I did wrong that I knew was wrong, or when I feel like my job where I might get threatened, I might lose my job. That's not something that would surprise any of us that scares you, but where that's good analysis for you is when I feel like my job is in jeopardy, I might lose rational thought. So I can think about what I need to do to prepare for that and what I need to do to practice better emotional intelligence in that situation. Does that make sense? I mean, is there anything that happened in that meeting where you thought, gosh, maybe I shouldn't have started crying, or maybe I should have...
That's screwed up.
Okay, well, they're not screwed up. That's a larger issue, but from emotional intelligence, we have to understand these mistakes and these screw-ups happen. It's, do we go into an emotional hijack just because they happen? Or can we see the positive side without being irrationally positive, and think about how we can best handle this interaction in a way that's going to draw, just be better for us. So, yeah, does that make sense? So maybe crime hurt you in that situation. So thinking about how you could avoid that reaction. Jim.
So I had a coworker who's a year or so less experienced than I do, and we were talking one day, and something came out about what this person was making, and I was kind of like insulted because it was less than me, but the difference was not enough to justify the difference in our responsibility. So we're technically the same role, same position, title, and I was like I'm a very calm, kind of individual. I'm like, oh yeah, and my friend was like, this doesn't make any sense.
Uh-huh.
And so like I was thinking about it, and like my initial reaction was to go to our manager and go, what's going on here? But then I kind of was like, okay, let me stop. Like, this doesn't really make sense. And I kind of knew that I thought about it a little bit more, and I followed up with some of those LinkedIn recruiters. The ones that sit in your inbox for like weeks, and all of a sudden I was like, you know what, I'm gonna apply all these. And I did. And it turns out that I ended up getting promoted like 3 weeks later. And so like the pay went up, all these other things. But had I said something to my boss at that time, and it was a very short time, 2-3 weeks, like had I said something, it probably would have been viewed as like unprofessional or very negative. But like I was angry, and it was almost like resentment. It was like an insult.
Uh-huh.
And so like at the time I was not trusting that my boss was going to make that situation right. Like I thought I was basically being played. And what ended up happening is that he had intention of moving me out of that role very shortly. I never said anything to him, and I don't think this person said anything. But like I could have blown all that.
Okay. So that awareness, it was the lack of fairness. Was it dishonesty? Was it what's the thing that you think may have caused that reaction?
It felt like a lack of fairness, but that was more of just like, I guess it was really like the dishonesty because I had been hearing from my boss, you're doing a job, thanks for doing those things, kind of like, okay, if you mean those things, why is there such a little difference in pay based on the responsibility of what you're doing? And it was just based right around the review time. It just so happened this person had the review before the meeting, and I was also getting to the department, and they wanted to come up. It was just emotions.
Okay. All right, fantastic. So we've got some events. We've got lack of fairness. We've got surprise. We've got losing our job. We've got sort of things that we can categorize that may send us into an emotional hijack. And this is what I want. And I want to hear for some more of you after we complete the next 2 pages, which is where we think about how can we, with this awareness that we've gained, which is just taking pen to paper and saying, surprise can put me into an emotional hijack situation. Lack of fairness can put me into an emotional hijack situation. That awareness can save you those critical moments before you'll do something irrational like call your boss up in the middle of the night saying, I want to quit. So the next 2 pages ask you to think about a potentially dangerous environment, which might be when you're giving a presentation, or a potentially dangerous relationship. And I guess we didn't really talk about, none of the examples were potentially dangerous relationships, but they could have been. Maybe some of you wrote down situations where your older sister, commented on your hair, or your mother commented on something, and that relationship puts you in a compromised position. So you could use a dangerous relationship. You could also use a dangerous environment. And I've asked you to think about 3 things. How does this affect your behavior? Behavioral limitations. Makes you less able to see the broader picture in terms of where your career might go. It may make you less able to be empathetic, maybe less able to think about what your boss was thinking because you're mad. Right? Jim was mad, so it might have compromised some of his ability to think about the rationale behind this. So how does this limit your behavior? Are there any early warning signs? Now, typically, this will just be your heart starts beating, you start breathing hard. But there are other specific warning signs that just thinking about could tell you important information. You know, you notice when your neck just gets really tense. Oh, I didn't realize I was that mad. But now that I feel my neck being really tense, I guess that situation did annoy me much more than I thought. And then the third thing is positive actions, which is, of course, the critical point. What should we do instead of reacting negatively? Instead of calling up our boss and saying we want to quit, instead of crying during the middle of a difficult conversation, what should we do instead? And I think Jim gave us some good examples. Let me take a breath. Let me look on LinkedIn and reply to some folks. And let me just think about the bigger picture of where my career might go. Let me take 24 hours. Let me have someone who could support me through this situation. Call the manager who I trust rather than the manager who's going to immediately take that information and use it against me. So those three things. Think about how you could put these broad categories into potentially dangerous environments, potentially dangerous relationships, and think about the three things. What are the behavioral limitations? Any early warning signs? And positive actions you should take. So if you can, come up with at least one good one. And we'll discuss that for a minute, and then we'll move on, and I'll let you finish the rest of that at your leisure. So dangerous environment might be giving a presentation in front of your boss. It might be having a conversation with your boss. It could be, in some of the examples we talked about, being in an environment, you could think more broadly and say an environment where there's unfairness, like Jim mentioned. All right, so does everyone have at least one let's see if we can get a couple good ones and think about how this can help us take this information we've been digesting over the past 2 hours and turn it into practical, tangible takeaways. Love it. Is there your hand or you're just playing? No? Okay.
I can go ahead.
Okay.
So, the situation with me was pretty much similar to yours.
Okay.
First thing I did, reaction was to cry.
Okay.
And we were at a pretty very difficult point when we were working on a project, and it was probably one of my biggest projects in the company that I started out with. So I was working with two female bosses who were just so against each other. They could not work with each other. They were both in the same position, but they refused to see eye to eye. They both wanted more power, basically.
Okay.
And I was under one of them. So what they would do is just grab work from each other the whole time. Finally, one after the other, every day, every week, it used to be like, okay, I was one of the subordinates, so I didn't have much of a say. They used to say, okay, do this, and then they would come back and say, okay, I'm not doing this anymore, do something else. But they just decided these things. So one fine morning, my manager called me into a room, and he understood exactly what was going on. He called me into a room before anybody showed up, and he's like, okay, so they took the reports also from you. So I'm like, okay, I'm left with nothing right now. What do you want me to do? I was in a position where I didn't have anything else to do for that day.
Okay.
So my first reaction was I cried. And this manager was this guy who always thought that all the female people in the team were giving him trouble. So he didn't have a very good impression about me crying.
Okay.
So it's like 2 of the other female are bothering me and you're crying now. That was the first reaction. I didn't want to cry. I tried to control my emotions as much as I could, but I was so mad at the situation because it was going on for weeks and months by then.
Okay.
I didn't know how to react. And I felt like I knew everything and they just took away everything from me. I felt like they were not doing justice to me. That was what I felt like.
Okay, so not being treated fairly.
Exactly.
Was it your job was threatened because you didn't have anything to do, so you
No,
could be gone?
no, my job wasn't threatened. I still had my job and I knew that for sure. I just felt pretty insulted. And
Okay.
I felt like it was not my problem that I'm being treated this way. They both had issues with themselves and I was made a scapegoat in this whole thing.
Okay. So all right. So being insulted, and what were your behavioral limitations?
I refused to see the big picture there. I could have spoken to my manager more reasonably and tried to understand what was happening. I just refused to look at any of that. I basically threatened him saying, I'm going to leave right now. I'm not going to come back tomorrow morning.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay, you didn't tell us that part.
I did. I just basically, I was ready to take my bag and walk out. So he kind of had to like calm me down, but I don't think he was in a position to do all of that.
Okay, so here's a situation that really had nothing to do with her. It was two managers fighting with each other. That was the crux of this. But for some reason, you felt really insulted by this and started to cry in a way that wasn't considered professional and actually threatened to quit as a result of that. And you're able to see the big picture so much more effectively when you look at it, put it on pen and paper.
Yeah.
But what's valuable in this exercise is to think about, all right, when I feel insulted, I can't see the big picture, and sometimes I don't act professionally. So the next time someone insults you, you're going to be aware of that.
Yeah, I think till now I think about that experience. It's been 2 years. It's made me much stronger.
Uh-huh.
And now if somebody tries to threaten me like that, I know what to do. I kind of calm down much. I don't go back yelling at people or crying or threatening to quit because that's really not what I want to do.
Okay.
But the negative part of it is that's the manager I still work with, and even though I've become much better at my job, knowledgeable, he still doesn't trust me as much because he still thinks I'm a little weak.
Oh, he
And
doesn't? So 2 years later, he still remembers when you were crying in his office.
I feel like he still thinks I'm a little weak. That's not
Okay.
something I like about myself.
Okay. All right. So this is a different slant on it. This is often I'll hear examples of where I lost my temper and I yelled at someone, and then 20 years later they're still holding a grudge. But this is a similar example in that this manager remembers this interaction and it hurts you 2 years later. Good. All right. Let's get some other examples. Mary.
So, my situation, it was like a month ago. There's a special thing we're doing because the real technical system isn't ready. So we're doing a lot of manual stuff. I'm the only one really who can connect all the pieces together. They brought in a woman who's supposed to be like the tough guy because it went so bad before. But the bad part of that is she doesn't know me and doesn't know you don't need to yell at me on a conference call because the number you wanted to hear isn't what we gave you because she doesn't know what I was asked. somebody else who then asked somebody who then asked me.
Okay.
So instead of saying, hey, can you check on the numbers? He said, well, first you said it was 7, then you said it was 100, then you said it was 7. Which one is it?
Okay.
So in the moment, I knew what kind of person she was. So I didn't react to her immediately
Okay.
badly. I was very calm, but since that moment, I had been plotting my revenge and plotting how I was going to resign in dramatic fashion the next day. I didn't even work for her. That wasn't, she was that bad. But, you know, because I was the only one who could do all this stuff, I knew I was really.
Well, it sounds okay so far. I'm not okay. I don't see an emotional hijack yet.
But I've not forgotten that.
Okay. So you're still stewing in resentment, just like Jameson and I talked about you should not do on family vacations.
Yes. And I told several people, including my manager and his manager, that if she yells at me again, the calls are going to get very interesting. So I never stopped planning to retaliate. Even though she didn't do it again, I've not forgotten that. So when you're talking about the emotional damage years later.
Okay.
And I'm still waiting for her to do something else, even though I've never told her.
Okay.
So the verbal abuse affects me,
Right.
because it's not necessary.
And we need her in class explaining, one time someone told me one thing, someone else told me another thing, and then a third person told me this, and I yelled at the third person, not realizing that she wasn't the one who gave me the initial wrong information. And she damaged the relationship as a result. So in her case, she might say, okay, this was misinformation, and I freaked out at misinformation, and I damaged the relationship as a result. So when I hear something I consider misinformation, I maybe should take a breath. And maybe that manager might have some early warning signs. When I hear misinformation, my stomach tightens up.
When I get abused verbally for no reason, I don't ever forget. I'm still plotting to retaliate.
Okay.
First chance.
Remind me never to make you mad. Just give me a chance to apologize. Okay, do we have another couple? Just so we can think. I really want to think about just the succinct way to sum these up. Did you hear how I just summed up this from the manager's point of view? All right, misinformation threw her into this emotional hijack rage, and as a result, she ruined the relationship. So if this manager was sitting in the room right now, I would say, what was an early warning sign, and what should you have done instead? And just going through that for 1 second can help you when the situation happens again. Someone have a shot? You said this was a colleague of yours? A peer of mine. So she was kind of undermining you. She was kind of taking a management role when it was kind of inappropriate, or. Okay. Mm.
And it wasn't a big deal. Like in the big picture, it was not a big deal. So I think physically, I was very nervous, and I've never been as nervous. And in the end, actually, the senior person said, "It's a big deal." So walking out of the office, it wasn't a big deal, and he actually said, "Okay, QC should have picked this error up, and it's nothing to do with her team."
What was it that set you off, that caused that nervousness?
I can be put in a position where if it's a big deal and I feel like if we made an error, we will really own up to it. But it's a political side of it, where something was escalated for no reason. It was more of a game that wasn't really anything else.
So it was just like it was annoying, or was it that because she teamed up with her boss that you felt that
It was our boss.
she teamed up with your boss and her boss? Was it the fact that she had gathered support that might be used against
I
you?
think that was it.
Oh, okay. Okay. So maybe when you see two people come at you, that could trigger an emotional hijack?
Yeah, and I think it's where if I don't understand, if it's not, if I do understand the situation and it's a fair situation, I'm fine with it. And but it's where if I see the situation is not fair or these games which played, I'm not good at it. So, but I've learned after that, I've learned how to put on those signals.
Okay. Okay. Was there something you did during that meeting that you regret doing?
No, I didn't know. I actually nothing during the meeting. No.
Okay.
So, but I was really nervous that I've never been in there. I was walking, I was showing paper or something. My hands were trembling, so I had to put my hands down, so I don't. So I'm like very calm. I come across calm, but it's not, So, but I think since that was like 5 years ago, so I've learned since then.
Okay. All right. Good. Good. And do y'all see what I'm doing? I'm trying to categorize this in a way that's useful going forward. Does that make sense? The approach that I'm trying to take with this?
So I don't know how.
I would say maybe two people coming at you cause that. It could also be just the backstabbing type of aspect of it. What's that?
Like betrayal.
Betrayal. Okay. So betrayal, politics. You said politics. So maybe that's something that could cause a special sense of annoyance. Like if I feel that someone just says they don't like me or don't like my work, okay, I can deal with that. But if I feel like they've enlisted someone else's support, or I feel like they're doing it in a cunning, manipulative way, maybe that's something that could trigger a sense of inequity that I feel I need to correct.
Right, and I tend to be more about it. I thought my boss should have supported me as well there, and there's no conversation with me trying to figure out what happened. It was just escalated.
Okay, so let's do this. I saw some other hands. If we've got maybe anyone wants to comment on a way of kind of trying to bring this into a succinct, this is what happened, these are the behavioral limitations, these are potential positive actions, or if someone wants to try to succinctly sum up their situation like that, maybe we can, all hands went down.
I
Alex.
think I could try. So, like for me, I think that an emotional hijack is when I feel like someone's trying to like mess up my reputation at work. Like for example, if someone copies other people on an email and tries to make me look bad, that really I can tell when I start getting upset. Like my heart starts pounding, or like I just get warm, and then I feel like sometimes that can hijack you there if you like reply back in an unprofessional manner, and then you can also ruin relationships. So I think taking some of the steps of just like breathing, like walking away, like waiting a few minutes to get your rational thought back, and then framing a response back better could.
Right. Have you gotten in those situations before where you replied too quickly?
Yeah. No, actually, like I usually don't reply. Just walk up to the person, and I'm
Like you walk.
and I just let everyone hear exactly what I'm saying and get really upset.
Okay, so you've had a couple of those confrontations.
Yeah, like
people.
I work in very competitive environments where like your promotion is based like on a merit system, like only X amount of people can get promoted. So then it looks like people try to like knock the other people off or make them look bad. So at the end of the year, I guess they're the only ones with good reviews. So I'm kind of like let people know like I'm not like don't try to make this.
Has that been the result? Like, have you gotten into? Does that work positively when you walked over to someone?
Actually, it has worked positively. Because
Okay.
And that was one thing I was going to ask. Like, if you're dealing with people that have low EQ or that just don't care, and then you're constantly like trying to be nice or constantly using high EQ against them, I think sometimes you kind of have to, like, I don't know, maybe like drop it down a little bit,
drop down to get down to their level.
so they can understand, like, what I guess.
Well,
more sensitive.
they'll still get mad like everyone else gets mad. I mean, if you threaten them, if you embarrass them, because they have low EQ, they may even get more mad. They have less ability to put themselves in your shoes. They have less ability to realize that they did something wrong. So it could still damage the relationship just as much. And because you said sometimes walking over to the other cubicle worked in a positive way, let's not talk about that. Let's stay on where you've identified that when your professional reputation is threatened, that sends you into an emotional hijack. What not to do? Reply right away. What to do? Get some air, take a breath.
Yeah, and at other times where I've done that, it's helped, and I've actually built a better relationship.
Okay, so that's all we're going for. That's all we've been building up to, was to think about what those situations are, what your limitations are, what warnings you might have, and what you should do that's positive. Does that make sense? All right. So, self-awareness, we've done some great work. Please continue that and fill that out and scan it and upload it to Blackboard. Or if you want to upload, if you want to, I've got the Word document on Blackboard. You could open that and type your answers in if you want. You don't need to get too in-depth with your answers. Just scribble something, scan it, send it to me, and I'll give you full credit for it. So that's a self-awareness start. Improving your social management. You'll be happy to know that self-awareness is key. That work we just did. What emotional triggers put you in a difficult situation? What professional and social situations make you nervous? What types of relationships might be difficult for you? What are the warning signs? How's your behavior limited? What should you do? Most important. And I realize this can be one of those things where you think like, well, this is going to make a really big deal that I just identify some of these things. Well, it really can. I think it can. I think just thinking about what can cause you those emotional reactions can help you prepare for those in the future. Avoid emotional hijack is something that this self-awareness can help us with and help us control our emotional management. It can also help us avoid something I might call a longer-term emotional hijack, which is, I gave the example earlier, if you get mad at all the people in the copy room because they did something really annoying, 20 years later when you're still working at the same company and you just get mad every time you think about them, it's only going to hurt you, and you want to try to think of a way to avoid that. Avoid corrupting your emotional management skills because you're mad about something that happened years ago. I like that you're plotting your revenge, Marilyn, but I'm concerned. I'm concerned for you. I'm not concerned for the manager. I'm concerned for you. I want to know how that might be hurting you and your relationships. Are people going to get nervous about you? I think you told your boss and his or her boss, or told some other people. They might say, ooh, Marilyn's not the person you want to mess with. If you find that that's hurting you, that's when I would step in and say, avoid that longer-term consequence. Okay, improving social management. What do I have here? Empathy. Analysis and practice, insight, analysis and practice. So remember I said there are three components of social management. You could divide it up many ways, but three components I wanted to point out to you. The first is empathy, your ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Think about what they're going through so you don't get intensely annoyed on that family vacation. You understand, all right, they're having a bad day, they're mad about their divorce, they're mad about this, they're mad about that. And that's why they made that really annoying comment about how, I haven't, gotten a promotion, or, why I'm still dating so-and-so. So that ability to put yourself in their shoes is going to help you with your social management. And as you put yourself in someone else's shoes, you can think about why. You can have the insight. It's just practicing. Just thinking about it exactly like we're doing now, and thinking about it in the moment will help you as well. We'll do some examples next week where we'll see that. We'll say, all right, if I had looked at this from this person's point of view, they would have been more likely to agree with me. Empathy and insight, analysis and practice. In terms of relating to people, let's say analysis and practice. Relating to people, we want to just continue with our analysis and practice, but there are two techniques that I like to recommend, that I like to teach, talk about with emotional intelligence in terms of relating to other people. Two techniques that can help us. The first is this idea of asking questions versus statements. The second is this idea that our intentions are different from our impact. And I'm going to skip questions or statement for right now. I want to go straight to intentions and impact. And I want to explain how that can work in our emotional intelligence discovery. So let's skip this for a minute. I decided I'm more interested in intentions and impact based on some of the things that we discussed earlier, some of the things that came up. So this is the idea that when we go through our professional lives and we try to accomplish things, we try to complete the job, we have intentions. When we start a discussion, our intention is to make a team stronger. When we start a discussion, our intention is to make a relationship more positive. And we have intentions. We have things that we want to accomplish, trying to do. On the other hand, there's also an impact. Sometimes when we start that discussion with someone at work and our intention is to make the team stronger, the impact is different. The impact is this person is harassing me. And the impact is this person is not empathizing with me. So the idea here is that in social interactions, our intentions are different from our impact. And the question from an emotional intelligence standpoint is, do we tend to judge ourselves by our intentions or by our impact? Intentions. We judge ourselves by our intentions, of course, because I have good intentions. I wanted to help you. I wanted to create a positive relationship. That's why I brought this awkward thing up. Well, of course, I had good intentions. Why wouldn't I judge myself that way? Next question. How do we judge other people? Do we judge them based on intentions or their impact? Impact. We don't know their intentions. We just know that they ruined our morning when they called us and said, we need to talk about doing better reports, or there's an error in your report. We don't know that their intention was to make the team stronger. So there's a problem from an emotional intelligence standpoint when we judge ourselves by our intentions and we judge other people by our impact. And that's where this invisible conflict can be created that we can identify and we can eliminate. We can hopefully uncover ways to interact more positively just based on the fact that we know there's a difference. All right, so we've got this cliff here. I spent a lot of time creating this visual aid, so I hope you like it. We've got one guy over on one side with intentions. We've got another guy over on the other side. The impact of those intentions. All right, this person says hi. This person like, what? Are you saying hi? Are you insulting me? I don't know. There's a gulf there. And the first time I took an emotional intelligence workshop, the instructor who led us through this just loved this idea of saying, evil gets way too much credit in the world. Right? Evil is really not a thing. It's just people with good intentions and bad skills. So this gulf between intentions and impacts can be defined sometimes by what we call evil. We can say, all right, you have bad intentions, or you're trying to do something wrong, or you're trying to manipulate the situation, and really we just don't understand what their intentions are. Evil gets way too much credit in the world. So often it's not people being evil, it's just people with good intentions and poor skills. So, evil. All right. How might we bridge that gap? All right, how might we clear up that confusion between intentions and impact? Whether it's something we're initiating or someone else is initiating. Nick?
think the first thing you do is make your intentions known.
Make your intentions known. Yeah, I love that idea. Label your intentions. When you knock on someone's cubicle, yes. Oh, I was going to say, when you knock on someone's cubicle, say, my intention here is I want to help the team get stronger. I didn't come over here to ruin your day. I didn't come over here to fire you. I just want you to make sure you understand that.
It's funny you talk about this now, because earlier today, I had a one-on-one with somebody who, they had a very unique need. So I asked them that. At the end of our discussion, I said, I have one more question for you. And I kind of made a joke about, where are you from? Tell me about your nationality and stuff. And so they went about telling me, and they were, everything was going well. And then I said, yeah, I went to this certain part of the world that's next to, the place that you're from. I serviced there, and then I started noticing that they were getting a little bit on edge. And then, as I was trying to make it a little bit more general by saying instead of just the city, by saying the name of the country, so they were getting more on edge. And then in the end, she was like, okay, just stop there, just stop there. And I had no idea what I had hit on. And then so, trying to back out of that whole, I just got into it.
Okay.
I'm always interested when I hear people's names to learn about diversity and see, just the fact that people can speak different languages kind of boggles my mind, and just bringing it back to the diversity standpoint. And as I thought about it in hindsight, apparently this place that I visited was at cultural odds with this place that she's from.
Uh-huh.
And as I started to elaborate on it, she got more and more.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. So your intention was to disconnect with her and say you're interested in her and where she's from. But you had a different impact. And you could just label it. You could say, I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable. I just wanted to connect with you. Maybe that would help. But it sounds like you handled the situation relatively well by realizing she was uncomfortable. And maybe you can smooth it over. Labeling is key. I suggest we build that bridge by labeling. This is the visual aid I worked especially hard on. Alright? Label intention impact. Say, my intention is, monitor for hijack. Right? If you see this woman becoming very uncomfortable, say, I'm sorry if I got into an area that made you uncomfortable in terms of my lack of knowledge of where you're from. But my intention was to just ask about that because I'm interested. And distinguish it from your impact, just like we did. Label the impact. You could look at it either way. I want to label my intention or label the impact. Just be cognizant of both and try to bring that to the surface of the discussion. Say this is my intention. Say I see that the impact is something different than that. Does that make sense? All right. Okay. Failing to label could cause an emotional hijack, perhaps like it did with Daniel's coworker this morning. Misunderstanding. It was just a misunderstanding. People could get defensive, hurt bitter feelings, jump to solutions, wrong solutions. We don't want this stuff to happen, so we want to try labeling. Make sense? All right. Let's see. What I want to do now very quickly is I want to go back to questions versus intention, questions versus statements, because this is it's just a little more nuanced. I didn't want to get into this. Until we had laid some groundwork with the intention versus impact. The idea here, and I want you to think about this and explore this a little bit on the self-assessment or the EQ workbook. The idea is that sometimes statements can be more emotionally triggering than questions. If you make a statement, sometimes that can be more emotionally triggering than a question. Reason can be is because a statement will often say something that the person has to evaluate for a threat. I use the analogy that it can occupy space. You lay down that statement. You say, this report has to be fixed. Okay, am I being threatened? Is my quality of work being threatened? Is my team being threatened? You definitely said it had to be fixed. You didn't ask me a question, so I have no need for cerebral engagement, really. Well, I do have a reason for cerebral engagement, but you didn't ask me a question to get me thinking about how it could be fixed, if it really needs to be fixed. So a question, it might occupy the same amount of space, if you will, but it also might engage your audience in a way that makes them less likely to go into an emotional hijack. Does that make sense? Right. Statements occupy space, requires threat assessment, ventricular amygdala, less negotiable, less need for cerebral engagement. Absolute statements can get you into trouble, especially. This absolutely has to be fixed. Okay, does it? Are you sure? Well, sometimes it can be sometimes statements can be necessary, and this is part of the reason why I avoided this slide, is because we can get into a very lengthy discussion about, well, you can easily ask a question which will freak someone out. That is absolutely possible. You can ask a question which will definitely send them to an emotional hijack. And you could give me 10 examples right now, and I've asked you to think about some of those examples in the worksheets.
You think we should buy a new crib? Plus
Okay. Okay, yeah, especially if I weren't thinking, I thought the crib was fine.
Or if you don't own one at all.
You don't, what's that?
If you don't own one at all.
Oh, okay. Yes, I understand. Do you think we should buy a new crib? All right, I'm going to hear that one in my sleep. Maybe we should buy a new crib. Questions may not occupy space. Okay, good. So what I've asked you to do in the worksheets is just think about how statements can cause an emotional hijack. Think about how questions could also cause an emotional hijack, but how you could turn that statement into a question that would not. Does that make sense? All right, and then the very last thing was these two slides where I've just talked about labeling intention versus impact. And I'll go through them very, very quickly. Okay. So suppose I'm going to initiate a conversation. I'm going to have intentions for initiating this conversation. All right, I want the team to be performing more effectively. I'm not saying anyone on the team deserves to be fired. I'm not saying anyone's doing anything maliciously. I just want the team to be performing more effectively. That is my intention. So that could have an impact on the person I initiate that conversation with. They could feel threatened. So I want to think about how I want to present that. Ways I could label my intention to make the team work more effectively. I could say, very simple verbiage. My intention is, my goal for this conversation. Label. Label could make the difference between putting someone into an emotional hijack and not. I want to monitor the impact that has on the other party. And I want to label what's going on with them. Did it cause an emotional hijack? So I might say things like, how does that sound to you? Is this something that could have a positive impact? How does that sound to you is very, very important, very key. Is this something that's causing you distress? How does that sound to you? You tell me. I want to hear from you. I want to put myself in your shoes, think about how you're receiving this conversation. This person we're going to have the conversation with, they're going to say something back to us, and we might want to uncover their intentions. Because we might think that they're questioning our authority when they fire something back at us. We might think that they don't want us to help them, that they're not cooperative. So let's dig and find out what their true intentions are. And keep in mind, I'm looking at this from the perspective of the person who initiates this conversation. We had intentions, we monitored the impact on the person we started the conversation with, and now we're trying to uncover the intentions of their response. We might ask very simple questions like, am I understanding you correctly that you do or don't like this idea? So what you're telling me is you don't like this idea. You're not telling me that you hate me. You're not telling me that you don't respect my authority as your manager. You're not telling me that you're going to quit tomorrow. You're just telling me you don't like this idea, right? That's your intention, because I'm getting a lot of different noise, and I just want to be clear. You're telling me you don't like this idea. And then, of course, their response to us may have an impact on us. And instead of saying something that gets misinterpreted, we want to think about labeling our intention when we say something back to them. Such as, way that impacts me. It impacts me that that you don't think I can be helpful. Is that your intention? Because I want to be helpful. So these are very simple terms, very simple things you can use to label your intentions, label your impact you might have on someone, and from the other side as well. Any questions on this? All right, great. I don't want to go through the last slide. It's pretty much the exact same thing, just the mirror image. You all have been great. This is, I think, really useful stuff, but I know it can be hard to just sit through 2 hours of lecture about it. But hopefully we did some good groundwork and you put yourself in a position to absorb this material, and I really think you did. And we'll have more fun next week when we actually get to execute. We'll go through some difficult conversation scenarios, think about using this in practical terms. As far as homework, I think I've asked you to do the EQ worksheets. Just fill those out, submit them on Blackboard. You also have your corporate change memo, which is due next week. And then there's just a couple people I'm going to connect with on Skype to get ready for the camera workshop, which is in 2 weeks. Any questions? All right, I look forward to seeing you next week for the practical application of emotional intelligence. We went through the on-camera worksheet stuff before you got here. And we assigned you a role, unless you wanted to do something different. I think we... So we assigned you to be a reporter for the BP. So read the, we're gonna have 3 reporters. So just do I have some links here that familiarize you with the, I think I'm click here to next. The video. Yeah, so just familiarize yourself a little bit with that and think about what questions you want to ask this BP of you. So you can throw Daniel off.
Thank you.
Yes, you bet.
No, but weird, but okay.
Folks who don't participate in meetings, then publish you through email or a couple other people, certain reasons why that won't work.
Yeah.
We just got through this discussion about
I didn't know they performed other times than Christmas and so therefore
Yes.
so those 2 things in one time. We're working on a project now.
Aw, is he the boyfriend? Aw, it's not like they're not. It's not all too creepy if you don't know. You know, if you don't know the guy, that's very creepy.
The basis was 7 reps. So anything I suggested wasn't. That's all it was to it.
You set it up. Yeah. Okay.
So I ran it through how exactly this
Everyone I talked to today was like,
I knew she had enough.
I can't wait.
I know. For some reason, I think today was the day of just like hit everywhere. For whatever reason, it's just like, what the?
When it was over to Lost Found and said,
Yeah. It's like, I think I know what it is. It's always a big weekend. Weekend holiday, whatever it is. Everyone needs to get things done right away because, you know, they can't wait until the afternoon or whatever. I'm like, you didn't, exactly. And I was like, you didn't think about this, you know, maybe like last week or the week before. Why last minute?
Okay.
It's like, I think your poor
plan,
planning
and that's how
became
we're
my
going to
emergency.
execute that.
And I mean, what is this all about?
Well,
It
so
shouldn't
that,
be like that.
I mean, I'm okay with that. So,
That's just my rant for the day.
Right, like,
We need
well,
something
that was, yeah, that was my
Yeah.
job. My job is to walk into an organizational forum and say, none of you won't be working here, we're reorging the whole thing. This is how we're
Yeah.
this is how you want to.
I can't wait to read your.
Yeah, that was sort of what I was thinking. He just thought it was still.
How do you make up a quote?
Although it's a factory, it's an elementary.
We have to watch those videos.
You brought your problem directly to him, but potentially to bring it to the surface or get it resolved, or yeah.
Well, he also thought I did it
I do
because I told him about this a couple of times and I wasn't getting any help in resolving the issues. You decided to make this happen all at once. Now I'm not somebody, right? So sort of one of the parts of the time she's told me.
Right?
So today,
So what happened to her? She got down. Yeah. Okay. So was that your plan all along?
quit today, like
I
she
just
just
wanted
left.
to help to get her back in line.
She was like, hi, hi.
He said the
Yeah,
conversation
and
we
then the
just
other
went
one.
through makes it perfectly clear that like, at this point, this should be possible.
I know. It's sometimes when there are people next, literally there's a risk that you're
I'm okay with
store.
that strategy.
And if they leave and it's just causing a flat spot, it's like,
You carefully thought how you could bring this to the surface.
It wasn't the right thing, right? It was clearly mishandling complex.
Okay, that could be a problem. Also, the people who stonewall you can send you into an emotional hijack, and they might sometimes be the people you need to especially be careful with. Like, if someone's trying to stonewall you and you get emotional back at them, potentially could really, yes.
Don't you love those?
Yes. I think this would be an interesting discussion to get into because at some point you have to use some aggressive tactics. But I think also at the same time you might be ready with some emotional intelligence. For example, you might sort of send them into your boss's office and get them feeling like they might get fired, and then be ready to kind of catch them. You see, this is inevitable. Now, how can we do this?
Now if I can get
It's like an uphill battle already just being
subject matter experts that report up to them. I'll just come at this from the bottom, right? I'll just win support from your groups and from the people that you say when they do something, what they're doing, right?
I don't know why she's telling me what to do.
Sounds like good
It
stuff.
does trigger all
That's
that.
why.
Yeah.
But also,
Thanks for your comments today too. Those are some
It is.
good,
Yeah.
insightful,
But if that
good insightful points.
when you're at disadvantage,
I have to pay for attention
be
to run
better manager and not be.
the day they help.
Therefore, you know, then you're
Everybody
to
else that takes it. They
see,
understand
this is why you shouldn't have been here. It's like, you know what I mean? You have to. I know that's a bad place to be where you have to be people from.
Really pay attention. I still have to accomplish what I'm supposed to accomplish.
All we'll have left is the owner.
she's been there.
Yeah. She can't quit.
I'll be interested to hear what you think of my difficult conversation scenarios. Maybe I can make some adjustments based on your feedback. See some real world examples for me.
Don't really care for support publicly questions.
Mine? Oh, I told you.
Yeah. You haven't already gone through that. Care that you agree with me. There's either we're in a group discussion or we're going through something and we're walking through it. But if you just walk around and tell people it's a dumb idea without coming through and trying to figure out why we're doing it or how it's a better plan.
So you're hired.
They hired some people.
Yeah.
Do they promote you?
All right. Well, look forward to playing some of this out next week. Thank you.
Promote you to, you know,
So I sent you an email.
what else?
I guess I missed shipping.
I don't know. What's not the owner, what's below an
Could we
owner?
sign rules?
The director, president, whatever the
Take
heck
place
they
in
have.
2 weeks. And if it's okay with you,
Yeah.
we've got you down for Oh, so
Experience.
so just read through the scenario, read through your roles, glance at the other roles. We'll set up Skype. We'll have some people in this room, we'll have some people in other rooms, and we'll go over some techniques about
I mean, I don't know, but whatever they choose to do, they're the owners.
Well, this is designed.
Oh, that's it. That's it.
Always a game.
So go through this and that'll come out. Cool. Just a fun exercise.
It's like, can't
All right.
we just
Good. Thank you. Thank you.
So this is again operation.
On camera stuff. Okay, do you want to do an interview? What point did you come in? Alright, so this is on camera workshop. We will talk about some ways to present your own self on camera. We'll talk about angles. We'll talk a little bit about lighting and how that can make a difference when you're trying to present a professional image over something like a Skype conference call. We'll also talk about ways you can use a camera to your advantage in a press conference to present your company in the best light possible. We'll also talk about if you're doing an interview for, say, your company. You're talking about how great this new product is. How can you deal with difficult questions and how can you present that effectively? And I've designed a number of exercises. We'll have people in different roles. One is a Skype conference call. The other is presenting a complicated graph.
I would think
The other is doing a press conference. The other is doing an on-camera interview. If you want to do an interview, you would just make up some things that you would be you would make up a topic that you want to be interviewed about. You would write some questions, and I would assign someone to interview you, and we would set it up. We'd set up your interview, we'd have your face on the screen. People would say, "Oh, she kept like looking down," or she didn't talk into the microphone, or whatever she did. She did this effectively, or didn't do that effectively. Or she didn't use the question answering technique to combat that conflict, to deal with that difficult question as effectively as she could have. That's what we'll do. And your options at this point are to do an interview, or I guess we could stick you on the graph. You could present a graph with Marilyn and Jose. It's just this statistical, historical thing, graph that was created 200 years ago about Napoleon's march into Russia, and it was an interesting development in statistics where the person who drew this graph showed some statistical principles that were, by our standards, primitive but interesting. So the challenge is to try to show this over Skype, and it will understand it will be complicated. All right.
That's okay. I'll do the.
Okay. Okay. All right. And I think good. Okay. Excellent. Perfect. So let me write you on the interview. Let me think about that. I just told Michelle that she was going to do something else. I think I might assign her to be your interviewer. Let me think for a minute. Just give me 1 second. Interview. So we're going to Skype. Let's circle back. Don't start preparing your interview. I'll send you an email, or after I think how I want to do this.
Yeah, I apologize.
Okay.
Get out of the way.
Taking care of
tried
people.
really hard.
People who are in pain.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah. I was like walking around, like putting papers down, and they were like, "You speak Spanish," and I was like, "No,
No,
I gotta leave."
no, Espanol. Oh, darn it.
Yeah. That's how
All
it
right.
went.
I understand. All right. Well, I'll email you, or we'll talk next week about the role. I'm glad we got that all in tape.